The day so far, we've got some huge horsepower on the line. And we're underway.
How's it going, guys? I got a brand new video for you today. This is the Elgin Classic Criterium, put on by PSIMET Racing and Rob Curtis. You guys have seen him in some videos before. You can see up in the right hand corner, this is a pretty simple course. It's not too technical. The corners are pretty wide open. My goal for this race, and obviously most races, is to stay towards the front of the race. I know a lot of the riders up there. I know that I can trust on their wheels, and it's less crash prone, and I have to do less work when I'm up towards the front of the group. So I get to the front pretty quickly, and I know that I want to stay here. Right now I don't have the perfect draft, but I am getting a little bit of protection. And I get up towards the front, and I just kind of let the other riders come up around me so that I can get a better draft. If you guys have been following me since last year, you'll know that I crashed last year on this course. It was pouring rain. And in the corner that is coming up at the bottom of this downhill, I just went from about 30 to 0 in half a second. I went in a little too hot, the back end slid out, and I was down. I actually pulled myself out of the race after that. I was, feeling a little down on myself. Didn't really feel like getting back in and chasing, so I was done for the day. So compared to last year, we were lucky that the weather held out for us. It was a little windy and it was pretty cold, but I'll take that over pouring rain like last year. Going into the race, I didn't feel super confident going through the corner, but after a couple laps in this race and a couple laps before the race with the teammates, I felt pretty good about it. So you can see I am managing to stay towards the front, which is exactly what I wanted to do for most of this race. So this is the first points lap. There were 2 intermediate sprint laps throughout this race because it was an Omnium weekend. There was this race and then a race the next day. And so for these intermediate points, if you go across the line in first, second, or third, you got some extra points to help you win the leader's jersey. I knew that this was probably my best chance at getting the leader's jersey was to try and get some of these points. So as I get myself in a decent position, another guy attacks right off the side and he just blasts it around these first couple corners. I put in a decent effort, but honestly, I could have probably put in a stronger effort, and there's no reason for anybody to come around me here because I am literally pulling them up to this guy. So I could have put myself in a better position here if I planned on getting some of these sprint points. I really was not in a great position to try and catch this guy. And honestly, as soon as these guys start to come around me, I start to fade back a little bit. I know that I don't want to get thrown out the back here, so I do try and stay on this wheel in front of me. And I just know that I really need to work as hard as I can to not get dropped from these first couple guys, especially if I want to try and get these sprint points. So as soon as we hit the hill here, I know that I just need to hammer it to try and get up the road. I'm not in a great position. I think I'm probably 6 or 7 wheels back. So it's not terrible, but it's definitely not where I wanted to sprint from. Again, I knew I needed to stay with this group, so I knew that they were going to slow down as soon as we crossed the finish line. So I just tried to keep my effort up so that I could stay with them. This is my buddy Corey. He's a super strong rider, and I know that if I can stick on his wheel for this middle part of the race, I'm going to be pretty okay. So I know that if I can stick on his wheel and just do what he does and go through the group where he goes, I feel pretty confident when I ride around him. He comes up next to me here, asks me how I'm doing. I asked him how he did in the sprint. He told me he got second, so I do know that he has some points where I don't have any, which is awesome for him, but it's really not great for me. The group did slow down there for some reason. I don't really know why. So again, right here, I'm just trying to stick on Corey's wheel and follow him and see where the race goes. So right here, I get stuck doing something that I know that I shouldn't be doing, and I've been trying to work on this a little bit. The group kind of lulls, and I use this opportunity to move up in the group, which is a good thing. However, I get a little too overzealous and end up getting stuck on the front. And I know that if I work really at all on the front, that's energy being wasted. So I really try to slow down and get myself not on the front of this group. But what ends up happening is I have to wait quite a while before the rest of the riders come around me. And I'm glad that I'm becoming more aware that I'm doing this because I do think that this is one of the reasons that I'm not really finishing all that well in some of the Cat 3 races, is just because I'm wasting energy for no reason. So you see, finally, these guys start to come around me, and I'm able to get a little bit of a rest. But again, that was a couple minutes of just wasted energy that I could have been saving for the rest of the race. So most of the race was pretty calm, and we're getting, pretty far into the race here, and what ends up happening is this Bicycle Heaven rider ends up attacking off the front, and he gets a pretty decent gap. And so this rider in front of me, I believe this is Andrew Zenz. He's an awesome guy as well, and I have to chase this guy down because we're the closest to the front, and if we don't do anything, there's a pretty good chance this guy is going to stay away. So we end up having to burn a lot of energy to get up to this guy. And Andrew puts in a really solid effort, and we do end up getting onto this guy's wheel, but we just used a ton of energy, and the race isn't over. We still have a decent chunk of the race left to go. And I don't really want a break to happen anyway, because if I were to get in a break, honestly right now I don't know that I have the ability to maintain a breakaway. It's just not my strong suit. So this is the second intermediate sprint lap that we're coming into. I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot. I'm in about fourth wheel. I know the guys in front of me are strong enough to carry us to the line, and I know that some of the guys in front of me are going to want to try and sprint for these intermediate sprint points. So I'm in a pretty good spot. If one of them tries to sprint, I can jump off of them. If somebody off the very front moves, we have basically a sprint train happening, and I'm far enough back where I have a little bit more time to react to an attack from behind the three guys in front of me. We're maintaining a pretty good pace here, and that's good because we don't want the group to swarm us. But what does end up happening here is that the group does start to come around us. A few riders start to come around us. So as they do come around, I want to make sure that I maintain a decent position. I don't want to get swallowed by the group. So as the group picks up their pace, I make sure that it's a priority of mine to get towards the front of these guys. And as we start to go down the hill, I want to make sure that I maintain as much speed as I can so that when we get up the hill, and as soon as we come out of this corner, I really want to be hammering as hard as I can and jump from these guys in front of me. So use the drafts that they're giving off and slingshot around them one by one until I can get a decent spot. And you can see I was maybe 1 or 2 wheels too far back, but what I did end up doing is making up a really good amount of ground. Had I not had to make up all that space, I probably could have made a better position in the sprint. I do end up getting the 3rd overall for this intermediate sprint, which gives me 1 overall point. Not enough to really do anything with, but it was a nice consolation prize. And then again here, you'll see that what ends up happening, like we just talked about, is that I get stuck on the front. This time it's not for as long as the previous, but it's still more than I should have been on the front, especially after just putting in a super hard sprint effort. So with about 3 laps to go, the attacks off the front started flying, and you can see that there's a guy or two up there that are really starting to pull away from the group, and this is not good. This is dangerous, man. So you can see everybody's starting to pick up their speed here. We really want to catch those 2 guys off the front, because even if they can maintain a couple second gap, That's enough to get the win, man, and we really, really, really don't want that. So you can see these guys are still up the road just a little bit. They're so close, and the group is really starting to push the pace. And you can see here that I do start to fall back a little bit. And this is only because if I'm thinking if we can catch those two guys, this is going to be a giant group sprint. And I want to be a little bit further back because these guys up front are going to start to put in heavy efforts, and I'm just going to be able to jump around them. So if one of these three guys in front of me just put in a really, really solid effort, we could catch them. No problem. The problem is these guys don't want to put in those efforts because then their race is done. If they put in an effort like that, there's no way they're staying with the rest of the group as soon as we hit this last lap, and this pace just jumps exponentially. And you can see two of these guys on the front start to slow down, and we really just don't want that. I really don't want that to happen. I want these two guys to get reeled back in. So as I start to decide to move up, this other guy on the left here has the same idea, which is great because now I have another wheel to work off of. And even better, a second guy comes around, and now I have two wheels that I get to work off of. And now I feel really good with my position because there's two guys in front of me. We're pretty damn close to catching these guys. And if we do, I can make a pretty good jump and possibly make a good sprint or even an earlier jump and hold it to the line. And as we start to go up over these little humps, our speed starts to slow down. And in my head, I'm just thinking, no, don't slow down because this group is going to come around us and we're going to get swallowed by the whole group. And these guys are so close. Like, if you could just reach out and touch them, man. We just need to get to those wheels. We just need to make it up there. So as the group starts to swarm around me, I'm starting to think like, oh man, I got to get in position. A race for third is still a podium spot. Let's do this. We can do this. And these are the last three corners of the race. So I know that I need to lock in my position now. And if I don't, then my race is over. And so as we hit the downhill here, I actually lose 2 spots, and I'm just thinking in my head, what are you doing? And I just, there's so much that goes through my head, and I'm thinking I could have taken the corner better. I could have carried a little bit more speed. And as soon as I know that my wheels are balanced and I can get on it, I get on it as hard as I can. And I don't know what happens, but as soon as I stand up, I just feel like I have nothing left. So I try and bury myself for a little bit, realize it's not going to happen, and just start to sit down and try and finish with still a solid effort, though. I end up taking 13th overall,